Hello, everyone at Classical Archives. It's my pleasure, and I should say my repeat pleasure, again, to have Donna Weng Friedman on our vlog program today. Um, Fabulous pianist who's been up to some fabulous things over the last 2 years. No, it's actually just about a year since we last spoke. We spoke in March 2022 about your Quiet Poems project. But today we wanted to loop back with Donna and ask her about a new project, a film called Never Fade Away, that was premiered at NYU Tisch Center for the Arts last May. Correct me if I'm wrong about anything. But since then, it's been shown around the world and it's been really engaging and moving emotionally. So many listeners really around the world. So I wanted to catch up with Donna and ask her about that project and what its genesis was and what's been happening with it. So welcome back. Thanks so
Thanks
much for
so
spending
much.
time.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me again, Barry. I always love our conversations. They're so much fun.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So what can you tell us about Never Fade Away? I know it tells us it's based on a deeply personal story about your dad. So what can you tell us about the genesis of the project and how it came about?
Well, Never Fade Away uh, started out as a love letter to my parents. I actually started sharing my father's story during the pandemic, uh, virtually, just a small snippet of his story and with music. And the response that I was getting was just incredible because it's about our heritage, these heritage stories. We all have them because we all come from somewhere else. And I was getting comments from strangers saying, "Oh my goodness, my grandfather had a similar experience." And I was getting, dozens and dozens of these beautiful comments. And so I started expanding the story. And when the doors opened and we started doing live performances again, I started performing his story through music and dance. Ariel Grossman, a dear friend and colleague who I've been working with, I asked her to choreograph the waltz. You see, the story is my father's escape from China during the Japanese occupation and how he came to this country with nothing but his hopes and dreams, and how a radio and a waltz changed his life. So I had that little waltz choreographed and did it in a couple of live concerts throughout the tri-state area. And people were crying. They were just so moved. Um, Everyone was telling me how much the story resonated with them. And then finally, uh, a woman came over to me who is in the business of the film industry, and she said to me, "You really should consider making this into a film. That way you could reach more people. The story should be heard and shared." And I started thinking about it, and I said, okay, and I wanted to do this as a tribute to my parents, who have been, long gone. They passed away too soon. And as I said, it started out as just a love letter to them with a simple story with the waltz. And that was about 4 minutes in total at that time. And so I was, learning how to do this. I booked the venue in Manhattan to film the waltz. And I didn't realize that you have to literally book these venues a year in advance or you don't get a great date. So I got a date. I was lucky to get one date 3 months after, the fact. And it turns out my male dancer, this incredible dancer who's been working with me in all the concerts, he was on tour that day and he couldn't
Oh,
make it.
boy.
Oh my goodness. So I started feeling so stressed out. How am I going to get a wonderful male dancer to portray my father in 3 months? And I figured, you know what? I have nothing to lose to just ask people who I know, who may know people. And the first person I thought of was my Juilliard classmate, Alan Moverman, who is a pianist. And he happens to be the pianist for the New York City Ballet. And I called him up. I said, I know this is just a wild idea, but do you think you can introduce me to Chen Wei Chan? Chen Wei Chan is the history making dancer, the first ever Chinese principal dancer in the 75-year history of the New York City Ballet. And to watch him is to watch music, and it's extraordinary what he can do and what he does and how connected he is to the music. And to me, he'd be the perfect person, but what a long shot. But Alan said, you know what? I'll introduce you via email and then you can take it from there. So Chen Wei was very kind to give me some, dates to have a phone call. And we had a nice conversation, and he was very sweet. And he said, why don't you send me the script? So I sent him the script. And 2 days later, he called me. He said, this is my story too. I'm an
Wow.
immigrant from China, and I would like to be part of it. So after I came to, I realized that if I have Chen Wei Chan on board, it cannot be a 4-minute story. I wanted to, feature him in more than just one waltz. So I started building up on the script, and it made sense because I had to explain how my father came here, why he came here. And so I literally started from the back end of the script and worked my way up to the beginning. And now it's all of 12 minutes, which was plenty of time to tell this part of my father's story. And, it was a joy working with Chen Wei Chan and his ballerina partner, Tao, who portrayed my mom in the dance. And she and Chen Wei Chan grew up together in China. They went to the same ballet school. And
Wow.
then they met again here in New York. And he wanted to dance with her because they'd never performed together before. So it was just a joy watching them. And that was really an experience of a lifetime for me. I mean, the entire process has been a learning experience. I've never made a film before. I'm just a pianist. but it was the most emotional journey of my life. I think I probably cried almost every single day, writing the script, filming it, editing it with my editor, putting the music together. It was such a personal journey and emotional one. And I'm just very grateful that people seem to enjoy it and resonate with it.
It was even shown in Times Square, right? On the whatever it is, 20-story
Yeah.
projection thing there.
Yeah. I mean, so that was just, it just blew me away, that experience. So it was shown on May 1st, 2023. The world premiere was scheduled for May 31st. And it was shown to celebrate AAPI Heritage Month. And so we were out there, and they told me at about approximately what time, a 15-20 second segment was going to be shown. And we were all out there, and then it was there, and it was part of the waltz. And oh my God, what a feeling that was. It was,
Yeah.
that was amazing. And the entire, that month after that happened, then, all the news outlets started covering the upcoming premiere. So we were on ABC, CBS, NBC, WPIX. It was like a whirlwind, but it was, I'm so grateful to everyone who took such an interest in my little film, even before it was premiered.
So you've mentioned the waltz a few times. So it's a Chopin
Oh.
waltz, right?
Yes, it's a very special Chopin waltz. And it's, integral to the part of the story that I cannot share because I hope people will see it. But it was a very special waltz for my father and for me. The whole story of my father's coming to this country obviously affected my family, but this particular story is really a father-daughter, connection. And yeah.
So, but when you made the film, did you have to roll in more music as well?
So, yeah, well, I always champion composers, underrepresented communities. And because this is my father's story, the other music was, by Asian composers. So Chinuri Aung, Beata Moon were the other two composers that I used, whose music I shared along with the Chopin waltz. Yeah.
So when your father came here and he was living by himself and was depressed or kind of depressed, how did this encounter with music change his trajectory and change his life?
You know, it's so fascinating. I mean, this little film, I think, really does highlight the healing power of music, as well as the power of the immigrant experience. And what is incredible is that my father, who grew up in a very, very poor family in Ningpo, he was the eldest of 13 children. Only 5 survived childhood. And in fact, when he was born, he was a blue baby. He had the umbilical cord tied around his neck. So he wasn't conscious. And he wasn't born in a hospital. They didn't have a midwife or anything. He was born at his home. And since he didn't breathe and cry, they assumed he was dead and they threw him in the garbage can. That's how poor they are. They just didn't know.
Mhm.
But in the middle of the night, they heard his cries and they took him out. And, from the very first day, he was a fighter. But he was so poor that he never had the opportunity to learn music, to even hear music. The first time he heard music was at his school, which he walked 2 miles each way to go to.
Mhm.
And he heard a music teacher play something on an upright piano, a very, old broken down piano. And to him, it was the most beautiful sounds he'd ever heard. So he ran home that day and he found a wooden plank and he carved out a keyboard and
Mhm.
he would play on that and close his eyes and imagine that he was making that music. So it wasn't until I started taking piano lessons that we all realized that my father had perfect pitch because anything I could play on the piano, anything, he would play back. And that lasted all the way from my growing up. He had this innate, you know, talent that was never, ever, tapped because he had no opportunity, which is why, Barry, I believe I was speaking with you about my education program maybe 2 years ago, which is why I do a lot of work for education role models to give children from underrepresented communities an opportunity to hear great artists, hear their stories and their talent so they have an idea of, hey, you know what? Maybe one day I can do that. My dad never had that,
That's
but
wonderful.
yeah,
I have a friend who's a psychologist, and he calls that categories. Kids can't kind of flesh out their ambitions and find their paths unless they understand that actually this is something that exists that I could do.
that's
You know,
exactly right. That's
yeah,
exactly right. So, and it all stems from education. It really starts from the education part of it and giving kids the opportunity to see themselves in the faces of great artists, of all disciplines. So that's from my father, I've learned to believe in my passions, in music, always music, but education and, bringing people together through stories and music. And that's really what I enjoy doing and I will continue to do.
So what kind of lives did your parents go on to have here in America after this discovery of music, and where did
Yeah,
things?
it's my father, when he came to this country, he had, he was trying different jobs. He didn't have very good, he really didn't speak a lot of English. And actually that radio that he bought, um, that was so integral to his, you know, blossoming, coming out of his depression. He learned, how to speak English through the radio. It was just something that he listened to late at night when he came home from work. He had no friends, no family, and that was his communication. But he had an electrical and chemical engineering background in China. And that's what he became. And he actually went on to having his own businesses where he patented, this chemical, I don't even know what you call it, but he was very creative, and that's how he did it. And he had his own business. And my mom worked for the United Nations as an interpreter for a while, and then she just raised me, and later on she became an accountant. So that they worked hard. I don't really know if I would have had their strength if I were uprooted from my home and had to travel all that way to a strange land where I knew no one, didn't speak the language. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how all of our parents and grandparents they did it, but they did it because of love. They did it because they had to, and they wanted to give everyone coming after them a better life. And so because of what my parents sacrificed, I was given a life filled with opportunity. So this was my tribute to them.
That's so wonderful. And where were you born?
I was born in Queens. So this is so
Okay.
funny. My parents met in a mahjong game in party in
Okay.
Queens. And then I was born in Booth Memorial Hospital in Queens. I first started learning piano when I was in Queens. And, I grew up going to school in Queens. And so I just found out that Never Fade Away was just selected to be part of the Queens World Film Festival in April. And that means so much to me because it's like going home. That's where my parents started out. That's where my family started. And so it feels like a really, full circle, beautiful way of having my film go home to where my parents started. Yeah.
And I know at a certain point you moved to Fort Lee, right? And then,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. In my junior year in high school, uh, uh, it's interesting because when we were in Forest Hills, Queens, for many years, it had the best Chinese restaurants because there was, a lot of the Chinese community started moving to Forest Hills. But then they started moving to New Jersey. And so my
right.
parents moved to New Jersey. And then we had the best Chinese restaurants opening up in Fort Lee. So it's an interesting statistic, I guess.
And then you went to Princeton for college, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Juilliard. I started Juilliard pre-college when I was 7. And for 10 years, that was my home. That was my home away from home. I loved it so much. I was a very, very shy little girl. Back then in elementary school, I was the only Asian kid in the whole school. And, my mom always said, don't make a fuss, just, don't draw attention to yourself and everything will be fine. And I was very quiet. I didn't even tell people I played the piano, but it started, words started getting out when I was winning all these competitions. So I think during those 10 years from 7 to 17, I had done so many competitions, which I loved because I felt more comfortable on stage than anywhere else. I could tell my stories and be me on stage. But I wanted to get a broader education. And I felt that if I went to a regular, university, I could learn, about literature, politics, history, anything that, and everything. And that would help me as an artist. So I did not go to Juilliard. I ended up going to Princeton, and I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. That and getting a dog. And having a family, of course. But it was wonderful because there the faculty was incredible. I studied with the most amazing faculty, but I also met the most extraordinary, young people who, we have a very tight-knit alumni
Oh,
community
nice.
at Princeton. And so we've kept in touch, and we go back to reunions quite often. And I think they're planning on showing Never Fade Away at my 40th reunion, which will be
Oh,
next year.
fabulous.
Yeah, that'll be
Well,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's terrific.
yeah.
What was the actual day of recording like as an experience
And recording for the film.
for the film? Yeah.
Well, we there were several days because there were parts of it that, the major part for me was the dance, the recording of the dance. The filming of the dance was exquisite. And I also learned that, with dancers, they can't do it, many, many times. So we had to do it in 4 takes, and that was it. And we couldn't have them rehearse too much because it would be too much. So it's an interesting, learning experience for me. So we did that, and we had to time everything perfectly with, but I had everything planned out in my mind. I know the script like the back of my hand, and I know the timing of the music like the back of my hand. So it worked out beautifully. And then the other days that we filmed were, it turns out that I ended up narrating the entire film. In the beginning, I didn't want to do it because I don't like the sound of my own voice. But my friend David Frost, who is the 25-time Grammy Award-winning producer, who just beat Kanye West's record. So now he's number 2, second only to Quincy Jones, who has 28 Grammys for producing. But anyway, David and I go back a long ways, and we've worked on projects together. And he was my vocal narration coach, producer, not coach, but producer. And because he was the one who said, no, you have to narrate it. This is your story too. And so I did that. And, he came into the studio, and, he's just such a lovely person and a very calming person. And so it went pretty well. So with the narration, I obviously had to be in the film so that people would know who I was. And I hate being filmed too. So, but you know what? It's all for the good of the story. And so we filmed in Chinatown, we filmed in Forest Hills, we filmed, in my area in Central Park. And then my editor, my wonderful editor, C.E. Chen, my cinematographer, Garrett Parker. I was so lucky. I had the greatest team, and so we worked together to put it together finally. But in the end, and I heard this from some filmmaker friends of mine, in the end, it's the director. I'm the director. It's my responsibility to know every second of the film footage. And of course I did. I knew every single second. So my editor, CE Chen, and she had to go to California for another project. And so we spent 8 hours straight where I would give her every single cut that I wanted and where the music would be, everything. And then she put that together. We got, the colorists in, we got the sound mixer in, and then we made the deadline because we had this deadline where it was going to premiere at NYU on May 31st. And we got it in like 3 days before.
Wow.
It's very stressful.
Yeah, I was just going to say a little bit of stress.
Yeah.
Who was it who said that? Oh, I guess it was Leonard Bernstein said he needed stress and a deadline to get something done.
Right. No, I could live without stressing, that was yeah, that was an experience, but it was such a learning, it's so different. The world of film is so different from, what I do normally.
So if people want to see the film, what should they do?
Well, if you're in New York City, you should definitely come out this weekend. Never Fade Away will be playing twice on Friday, February 23rd, matinee at 1:15 at Look Cinema, which is this gorgeous, gorgeous cinema theaters that actually is a dine-in place. So you can order food while you're at your seat. That's on West 57th Street. This is part of the Winter Film Awards, a very prestigious film festival, which I'm so grateful to be part of. And then on Saturday, February 24th, 5:30 p.m., Never Fade Away will be screened at the same theater, Look Cinemas, part of the same film festival, 5:30 p.m. And after the screening, there are 4 films shown. There will be a talk back with the directors. And so I will be there talking about, whatever it is they're going to ask me. So that's very exciting. Film festivals, Barry, I have to share, are so much fun. If you're able to take the time, when they're in New York City, I always go. It's harder for me to travel when I have concerts. But so for instance, starting Wednesday, we have the opening night party, and every single day there are events for the filmmakers, press, interviews, but also gatherings, groups, places where you can meet fellow filmmakers. So I'm in the documentary genre. I'm also in the films from Asia genre. And so you get to meet all these people, and it's the entire week lasting until Sunday night, which will be the gala awards ceremony. And I have a concert that afternoon in New Jersey. After the concert, I'll be racing in. I hope there's no snow so I can make the gala event.
Wow, it's so exciting. That
Yeah.
really is.
But please go onto my website, donnawengfriedman.com, or you can type in Google neverfadeaway.info to find out about the awards we've won, the beautiful reviews, and upcoming screenings.
So, what projects are coming up next for you if you have had a chance to turn your attention to that kind of
Well,
question?
I'm always working on multiple projects at the same time. And on Sunday, I'll be performing the world premiere of Microvids by Stefania de Kennedy for piano, orchestra, and poetry recitation. And Microvids is a piece that Stefania wrote during the pandemic. 19 short pieces for COVID-19, very short little gems that express the feelings and emotions that we all felt during the pandemic. But she wrote this for children because she was thinking about, how are kids getting through this? And, with the mental health crisis that we're facing, to me, I think music is the best way for children to express themselves, right? So Stefania asked me to record the solo piano version, and I did. And I talked to her about possibly, having little short rhyming couplets introduce each one of, the miniatures. And she sent me these beautiful couplets that she wrote herself. And it started actually, I started thinking a lot about how this could be the next Carnival of the Animals. So, in order to do that, you have to have an orchestra version. So, the New Jersey Youth Symphony, which is the orchestra we're performing with on Sunday, led by the incredible conductor Helen Chow, they commissioned the orchestra arrangement for it. The piano part never changes. The piano part stays, and the orchestra part, sort of weaves around the piano. And Crystal Joy Brown who was the actress who played Eliza in Hamilton, and who is now currently on Broadway in Merrily We Roll Along by Sondheim. She recorded the couplets with me, and we're performing microvids Sunday at 3 p.m. at the Union County Performing Arts Center in Rahway, New Jersey, 3 p.m. Sunday. The poetry will be recited by this wonderful singer and also writer, Diana Solomon Glover. She's going to be doing that on Sunday because Crystal is on Broadway. She can't make it. But we will be doing a recording of this with Crystal on March 31st with the New Jersey Youth Symphony. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Boy, when I asked what your other projects were, I didn't realize it was something so ambitious. That's fabulous.
Yeah, it's exciting. You know, I think anything, I love working with children. I love working with children. And as I said, education to me is everything. And, if the truth is that I've been teaching some of these miniatures to my students. I have such a wonderful group of kids, and I always bounce ideas, my children's projects off of them, because I want to know if it works. I really always, before I move forward with any project, I want to know that it will resonate with the audience, the targeted audience. And my gosh, they love these pieces. They love the poetry. They recite it. And I think it's just going to be so much fun to get it out there for, children. Oh, and we're also doing it in Spanish. And our plans is to have all the poetry recited in as many languages as we can. So we're, in the process of, translating it to Hindi and Korean and Chinese. So, it'll, be for children of all backgrounds.
Wow. Well, that's fabulous. It really is. So I will make a point to get this video up on Classical Archives as soon as possible so people can be aware of all these opportunities to attend events and hear things.
So
So
appreciated, Barry. I mean, really, you were reaching out to me at the perfect time, and I'm so sorry. I should have reached out to you first, but I've been so busy. It's been, it's been incredible, but really hectic, especially coming up this week.
Well, it sounds as though reaching out to you at any time would be the right time because you're always doing so much. So terrific. So is there anything else you would like to talk about?
I think that's plenty for today.
Terrific. Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. And I will, obviously, I will let you know when this is up and live on Classical Archives. But
Well, thank you, Barry.
it's very exciting.
You're
Thank you
so wonderful. I appreciate your support always, and what you do for classical music. It's really so important. It is
Well,
so
thank you.
important.
I'm a flea in comparison to people like who are doing this kind of stuff that you're doing, but thank you. Okay. But in any case, thank you so much. And I'll be back in touch ASAP, as they say.
Okay,
Okay.
terrific.
Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day off, if it is.
Well,
Thanks.
I actually have another meeting, and then I have rehearsal. I have to go to New Jersey to rehearse.
Oy, oy, oy,
Yeah.
as we say in New Jersey.
Yeah, but at least it's not snowing,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah, I'm looking out my window. It's quite pretty.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks a
Okay.
million. I'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you.
Have a
Take
great
care.
day. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a million. Bye.
Bye.